Welcome to Value Plays Only, where Necropotence is just to keep from decking out. Today we have John, playing Malcolm Keen-Eyed Navigator and Vial Smasher the Fierce. This Grixis Pirate deck looks to win fast. It can lean on Thassa's Oracle, Underworld Breach, Glinthorn Buccaneer, or the Trickery Charm Loop. His hand contains Mystic Remora, Curiosity, Imperial Seal, Flusterstorm, Blood Crypt, and Command Tower. His London Mulligan is a Diabolic Intent. Dan is playing Najeela, the Blade Blossom. This 5-color good stuff pile is packed full of wins. In addition to Najeela's specific combos like Derevi and Grim Hireling, it can win with Thassa's Oracle or Underworld Breach. His hand contains Mystic Remora, Grand Abolisher, Samut, Vizier of Naktamun, the One Ring, Pact of Negation, City of Traders, and Tarnished Citadel. Tyler is playing Dargo the Shipwrecker and Tymna the Weaver. This deck looks to loop Dargo with Relic of Legends or Birgi and a Sacrifice Outlet, or it can win with Underworld Breach. His hand contains Mana Vault, Culling the Weak, Beseech the Mirror, Soul Partition, Exotic Orchard, Flooded Strand, and Gemstone Caverns. Last we have Cammy, playing Sheoldred the Apocalypse. This mono-black control deck looks to punish mid-range value decks while slowly draining the table. It can win with Blood Chief Ascension and Mindcrank, or Chain of Smog and Professor Onyx. Her hand contains Imperial Seal, Grim Tutor, Wishclaw Talisman, Chrome Mox, Tragic Slip, Boggart Trawler, and Swamp. And with that, let's see some value plays. Tyler has a pre-game action. He puts Gemstone Caverns onto the battlefield, exiling Soul Partition. John then takes his turn. John plays a Command Tower for turn, and he casts Mystic Remora. John passes. Dan plays a Tarnished Citadel for turn. Envious of John's great play, Dan takes 3 to play a Mystic Remora of his own. Remora triggers and John draws. Dan's Remora resolves, and he passes the turn. Tyler untaps and plays a Flooded Strand for turn. Staring at both fishes, Tyler passes. Cammy plays a Swamp for turn. She casts a Chrome Mox. Both Remoras trigger, and Dan and John draw. Chrome Mox resolves, and Cammy imprints a Grim Tutor. Cammy casts an Imperial Seal. Both Remoras trigger, and Dan and John draw. Imperial Seal resolves, and Cammy searches a card at the top of her library and loses 2 life. Cammy passes. John untaps, and in his upkeep, he pays to keep Remora. John plays a Blood Crypt into play untap, paying 2 life. He casts Imperial Seal. Remora triggers, and Dan draws. Imperial Seal resolves, and John shows the table he's not getting a win and puts Soul Ring on top of his library. He loses 2 life, then passes. Dan untaps, and in his upkeep, he lets Remora die. He plays a Verdant Catacombs for turn. He pays a life and cracks it, fetching up a Tropical Island. Dan exiles Simian Spirit Guide for a red mana to cast his commander, Najeela, the Blade Blossom. With that, Dan passes. In his end step, Tyler pays a life and cracks his Flooded Strand to fetch up a Scrubland to the battlefield. The turn moves to Tyler. Tyler untaps and plays an Exotic Orchard for turn. He casts a Mana Vault. Remora triggers and John draws. With nothing else, Tyler passes. Cammy untaps and plays a Boggart Bog, untapped, paying 3 life. She casts a Dark Ritual. Remora triggers and John draws. She casts her commander, Sheoldred the Apocalypse. Cammy passes the turn. In his upkeep, John lets his Remora die. In his draw step, he takes 2 from Sheoldred. He plays a City Brass for turn. John casts Soul Ring. He then casts a Lightning Rig Crew. All finished, John passes. Dan untaps and draws for turn. Sheoldred triggers and deals 2 to him. Dan plays a Tundra for turn. He casts Samut, Vizier of Naktamun. Dan goes to combat. He swings Najeela and Samut at Tyler. Najeela triggers and makes 2 1/1 warriors tapped and attacking Tyler. Tyler takes 7, and Samut triggers 3 times. Dan draws 3, and Sheoldred triggers 3 times, dealing 6 to Dan. He discards the hand size and passes. Tyler untaps and draws for turn. Sheoldred triggers and deals 2. He casts a Lotus Petal. He then casts a Seize the Spotlight. After a quick explanation of what this card does, Seize the Spotlight resolves. Not looking to lose their creatures to the Dargo lurking in the command zone, Tyler's opponents all choose Fortune. Tyler creates 3 treasures and draws 3. Sheoldred triggers 3 times, and Tyler takes 6. Tyler plays a Sacred Foundry for turn, untapped, paying 2 life. Tyler then casts Relic of Legends. John responds with a Force of Negation, exiling Pact of Negation as an alternate cost. Relic is countered and exiled. Tyler then casts his commander, Tymna the Weaver. Not wanting all his sacrifices to go to waste, he then sacrifices another treasure to cast his other commander, Dargo the Shipwrecker. He passes the turn. Cammy untaps and draws. She gains 2 life from Sheoldred. Cammy plays a Swamp for turn. Cammy pays 2 for a Wishclaw Talisman. Tyler offers to show Cammy his hand in exchange for the Wishclaw. She takes a peek and confirms it's probably best for him to have it. She pays 1 and activates Wishclaw, searching up a card to hand and giving it to Tyler. Cammy then passes the turn. John untaps and draws for turn. Sheoldred triggers and deals 2 to him. He plays Misty Rainforest for turn. He pays a life and cracks it, fetching up an Underground Sea to the battlefield. John casts Curiosity, targeting Lightning Rig Crew. Seeing their life flash before their eyes, Cammy casts Deadly Rollick, targeting Lightning Rig Crew. John responds with a Flusterstorm, with all copies targeting Deadly Rollick. Rollick is countered, and Curiosity resolves. John casts his commander, Malcolm Keen-Eyed Navigator. Lightning Rig Crew triggers to untap. John responds by tapping Crew to deal 1 to each opponent. Curiosity triggers and John draws 3. Sheoldred triggers 3 times and John takes 6. With that, Lightning Rig Crew untaps and Malcolm resolves. John casts Lion's Eye Diamond. John then taps Lightning Rig Crew. Each opponent takes 1. Malcolm and Curiosity trigger. John draws 3, takes 6 from Sheoldred, then makes 3 treasures. He then casts a Lotus Petal. The table starts talking here and decide they need to do something about this board. Cammy shows Tyler a card and asks if he can sacrifice something. Tyler casts a Culling the Weak, sacrificing Tymna as an additional cost. He adds 4 black mana. Still in response to Lotus Petal, Cammy casts Tragic Slip, targeting Lightning Rig Crew. John thinks here and decides to cast Deadly Relic, targeting Najeela, trying to cut Dan off a free interaction. Najeela is exiled, and Lightning Rig Crew dies. Lotus Petal finally resolves. With the stack clear, John casts a Beseech the Mirror, bargained by sacrificing Soul Ring as an additional cost. John holds priority and sacrifices Lion's Eye Diamond, discarding his hand and adding 3 black. Beseech resolves, exiling and then casting Underworld Breach. The table looks to the 5-color deck for help, but Dan passes priority. Underworld Breach resolves. John cracks a treasure for a 4th black mana and exiles 3 cards from his grave to escape Beseech the Mirror, bargaining it by sacrificing Lotus Petal as an additional cost. John exiles and casts Brain Freeze from his library, with all Storm copies targeting himself. John mills 36 cards. John is now free to present a loop of escaping Lion's Eye Diamond from his graveyard for 3 blue mana, and spending 2 to escape Brain Freeze, milling the rest of his library. He then escapes Thassa's Oracle from his grave. Thassa's Oracle enters, triggers, and John wins the game. Today we have a 2-for-1 deal. In this game, Dan is playing Atali, Primal Conqueror. This deck wins by casting Atali early and often. He can win with Food Chain or any of his opponent's win conditions. His hand contains Wheel of Fortune, Imperial Recruiter, Sowing Microspawn, Elvish Spirit Guide, Lotus Petal, Gemstone Caverns, and Carplusion Forest. Tyler is playing Rograk, Son of Rogoth, and Thrasios, Triton Hero. This is a Gaia's Cradle Storm list, looking to make tons of mana and dump it into Thrasios to pump out a win. His hand contains Frantic Search, Valley Flood Caller, Deflecting Swat, Candelabra of Tawnos, Utopia Sprawl, Breeding Pool, and Ancient Tomb. John is playing Zurgo, Stormrender. This deck is all about tokens, and Zurgo turns them into card advantage. It can win with Abdel Adrian loops, Dualcaster Mage, or Underworld Breach. His hand contains Mayhem Devil, Lotho Corrupt Sheriff, Mondrak Glory Dominus, Deflecting Swat, Chrome Mox, Raucous Theater, and City of Brass. Cammy is playing the 3rd Doctor with Vizsla Turlo. This Sultai deck is built to push a lot of value. It can win with Food Chain or Thassa's Oracle. Vizsla is also a card advantage engine, if you squint. Her hand contains Displacer Kitten, Sylvan Library, Flusterstorm, Dark Ritual, Soul Ring, Forbidden Orchard, and Watery Grave. And with that, let's see some value plays. Cammy has a pre-game action. She puts Gemstone Caverns onto the battlefield, exiling Polluted Delta. Dan then starts things off with a Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. He casts Delighted Halfling. Dan passes. Tyler plays a Breeding Pool, into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts his commander, Rograk, Son of Rogoth. He casts an Utopia Sprawl, targeting his Breeding Pool, naming green as it enters. Tyler passes. John draws and cries as he shows the table his 8th card, Gemstone Caverns. John plays Bloodstained Mire for turn. He passes. Cammy untaps and plays a Bloodstained Mire of her own. She cracks it and pays a life, fetching up a Bayou. She casts Orcish Bowmasters. It enters and triggers, targeting the Rograk. Tyler tries to persuade her to point it somewhere else, but Cammy is determined. In response, Tyler casts Deflecting Swat, targeting the Bowmaster's ability. Swat resolves and changes the target of Bowmasters to itself. Bowmasters dies and Cammy amasses Orcs 1. She then passes. Dan untaps and plays Taiga for turn. He casts an Arcane Signet. Dan follows it up with a Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer. Tyler points out the juicy Bowmaster's target that is now safe, and Dan passes the turn. Tyler untaps and plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps out for the One Ring. In response, John pays a life and cracks Bloodstained Mire for a Sacred Foundry, into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts Enlightened Tutor. John puts a Soul Ring on top of his library, and the One Ring resolves. Tyler taps the ring to add a counter and draw a card. Tyler then passes. John untaps and plays a Swamp for turn. He casts Soul Ring. He casts Goblin Bombardment. John passes the turn. Cammy untaps and goes to her main phase. She casts Lotus Petal. Cammy cracks the petal for a Brainstorm. She draws 3 and puts 2 cards from her hand back on top of her library. Cammy plays an Overgrown Tomb for turn, untapped, paying 2 life. Cammy casts Food Chain. With several uneasy stares, Food Chain resolves. Cammy passes the turn. Dan untaps and plays Gaia's Cradle for turn. He casts Roaming Throne, naming Dinosaur as it enters. Dan passes his turn. Tyler untaps and in his upkeep, he takes 1 damage from the One Ring. Tyler plays Volcanic Island for turn. He taps his ring to put a counter on it and draw 2 cards. Tyler then casts his other commander, Thrasios, Triton Hero. Tyler takes 2 from Ancient Tomb and casts an Expedition Map and a Candelabra of Tawnos. Tyler pays 1 into Candelabra to untap Ancient Tomb. He taps it again to activate Expedition Map, fetching up a Gaia's Cradle to hand. Tyler passes. John untaps and plays Gemstone Caverns for turn. He casts Smothering Tithe. John passes the turn. Kemi untaps and draws. Tithe triggers and Kemi pays. She casts a Mystic Remora. It resolves and Kemi passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. Tithe triggers and the table begs him to pay. John creates a treasure instead. Dan plays a Cavern of Souls, naming Dinosaur as it enters. He casts his commander, Etali, Primal Conqueror. Etali enters and triggers twice due to Roaming Throne. The first trigger resolves and exiles March of Swirling Mists, Mayhem Devil, Flesh Duplicate, and Deflecting Swat. Dan casts the creatures. Flesh Duplicate enters as a copy of Etali. New Etali triggers twice due to Roaming Throne, and Dan sends the original to the command zone due to the legend rule. The next Etali trigger resolves, and Dan exiles Abrupt Decay, Charismatic Conqueror, Mental Misstep, and Talisman of Impulse. Dan casts Conqueror, Talisman, and Abrupt Decay, targeting Mystic Remora. Remora triggers twice, and Kami draws 2. Tithe triggers twice, and John makes 2 treasures. Abrupt Decay then destroys Remora, and the other spells resolve. The next Etali trigger resolves, and Dan exiles Jessica's Will, Noxious Revival, Professional Facebreaker, and An Offer You Can't Refuse. Dan casts Facebreaker and Jessica's Will, targeting Tyler, to make mana. Dan makes 6 mana, and the stack resolves. The final Etali trigger, for now, resolves, and Dan exiles Simian Spirit Guide, Thundertrap Trainer, Arcane Signet, and Flusterstorm. Dan casts the permanents. Thundertrap Trainer resolves and triggers, looking at the top 4, failing to find. With the stack clear, Dan spends his Jessica's mana and taps out to cast Etali once more. Etali enters and triggers twice due to Roaming Throne. Dan exiles Food Chain, Springheart Nantuko, Swords to Plowshares, and Demonic Tutor. Dan casts Food Chain and Demonic Tutor. With no answers in sight, Dan is free to tutor up Squee the Immortal. With Food Chain in play, Dan can exile some creatures to cast Squee from his hand. He can then present a loop of exiling Squee for 4 red creature mana and casting it from exile for 3. He makes infinite red creature mana. Dan can then exile and recast Etali over and over, exiling each player's library. The table can see the writing on the wall and scoop it up. With that, Dan wins the game. So, what do we learn here today? If you need interaction, ignore the blue players and look straight to mono black. Hopefully they can save the day. Also, just because a turbo deck doesn't win on turn 2, doesn't mean they won't win quickly. If you have suggestions for commanders we should play or other tips for the video, leave them below. Until next time, keep making value plays. I'm going to tap for 1 mana, and I'm going to cast, and this isn't a big deal, it's just like for value. I'm going to cast a Curiosity targeting Lightning Recruit.
But you tap that guy, right?
Yeah.
And then Malcolm will enter and he'll draw 3 more.
Yeah.
So he's going to draw 6 cards this turn.
Amen.
He's going to take 12.
You passing on?
I don't have any.
6 cards for 12 is good. Damn, I dropped mine. Damn. I passed.
Okay, I will Deadly Rollick.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Flusterstorm.
Ooh.
Ooh!
I have 3 copies.
God.
Ooh! Okay, I tried to.
You did.
Okay.
You did. I appreciate it.
A hero.
I'm going to retain priority on my own turn here.
Well, you just cast a Lotus Petal.
Sure, I cast Lotus Petal.
Yeah,
What
so
do we
let's
got?
back up
Yeah.
a second. You thinking about winning?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's understood. Alright, I will tap this. I'll sack Tymna as cost to Culling the Weak. Tymna has now died.
Am I good to resolve Lotus Petal?
No.
No. I will go ahead and pay 1 for Tragic Slip, targeting Lightning Guy.
Dan, back us up here, guy who draws 50 cards a game.
Dude, if I had other stuff to do.
Mono Black is
Literally carrying the Najeela
only
player.
interaction right now.
Wild.
So,
The Mardu and Mono Black decks carrying Najeela through this freaking winning.
you know what the common color is?
Dan?
Black.
You have black. Don't even go there.
Huh?
Huh?
What?
We gotta talk, Dan. we gotta.
I have interaction.
Okay.
But I can't use it.
For Beseech the Mirror, Bargain, Soul Ring.
I'm gonna make sure this is.
I'll put an Underworld Breach on this thing.
Yeah.
And I'll crack it for more blue, and then I will cast the Thassa's Oracle that's in my graveyard, and I don't have a library. Do. Bing bong.
I'm good there. There's no.
Is there any...
Mine wouldn't do anything.
Okay.
It's good.